He has argued 10 cases before the Supreme Court, then turned around and imagined a world where humans are treated like pets. It's Richard Allen. He is a constitutional lawyer, a former teacher of science fiction, and now a novelist exploring power, freedom, and survival through speculative storytelling. Mr. Richard Allen, how are you?
I'm good.
Glad to
Thank
hear
you
it.
for having me.
Happy to have you. And so, what did I miss in that introduction? What are you all about? What's your focus and passion?
Well, my focus and passion are writing, obviously, reading, um, outdoor exercise. I live now in a little town in Colorado, Crested, Butte. I'm looking out at the mountains right now. Um, and My wife and I have had Labrador retrievers for more than 40 years. And that and I've always been interested in science fiction. As you mentioned, I've read science fiction many years ago, um, particularly when I was younger. But having dogs led me to wonder, what would we be like if we were pets in similar circumstances, raised by loving owners, but without language or culture or human community. What would we be like? And would we be just like our pets? Would we sleep 12 to 20 hours a day? Would we get excited about our two bowls of kibble every day? What would we be different at all? So that's what kind of inspired me to write this book. The first book, Kobo, and then I've written the sequel, Kobo's Children, um, which involves humans and pets of alien creatures living very much in circumstances like ours, but the aliens are much larger as we are from our dogs. Um, and they're kind of reptilian, and we would regard them as repulsive, but the humans that they're pets of um, love them and cuddle up with them. And so, anyway, that's what inspired me to write the book.
Nice. Well, it sounds a little bit like a Planet of the Apes, right? Where it's like the time of humans running the show has passed.
Yes, kind of. But Planet of the Apes is more a story about enslaved humans and and rebellion. And so I wanted to explore what we'd be like as pets. Um, so that's the main difference between Planet of the Apes and other similar stories and my stories.
Fair
Anyway,
enough. Yeah, and I've heard this kind of idea sometimes mentioned every now and then, right? The idea of like, well, if AI becomes smarter than us, or if aliens are smarter or bigger or stronger than us, well, like we just there'll be no fighting it, and the future will look drastically different. And so, as far as this kind of coming together, were there any like twists and turns or forks in the road, or did you picture well the Kobo, the two books? Did you have an idea of how they might be created, and then along the journey, it was the kind of an unexpected path?
sort of. My in the first book, Kobo, the main characters are Kobo. At the beginning of the book, he's a 14-year-old, friendly Labrador-like human pet, um, and his when he goes into puberty, his owners get a female a year older than he is, uh, whom he names Ra. She never had a name, and getting a name is kind of gives her a sense of identity. Um, and They know nothing about sex. They know nothing, they know nothing about death and dying and sex. Lots of things they don't know about. But by trial and error, they eventually have a child. And a year or so after they have a child, the owners sell it, um, as we would sell our puppies. And that puts the Okobo and Ra in Great Depression for a year or two, but eventually they get over it and they have another child, Na, a female. And Na, they have their owners let them keep her for 3 years. But then one day, after the owners have drugged their Kobo and Ra, they wake up and Na has disappeared, and Na has been sold too. Um, and Kobo goes berserk, and he attacks the male owner with a knife and sticks it 3 inches into his cheek. And the next day, Kobo is on a spaceship on the way to the mines of another planet in the Grob system, Loma, where the Grobs, that's the name of the species that owns them, has an industrial mining complex. And so Kobo winds up as a slave working in the mines. So that's kind of the twist in the story. And then Ra, one day when she's taken to the park by her owners, sees her daughter Na, a little toddler, across the park, and she jumps for it, but the owner steps on her leash and jerks her back. And then the next day, Ra runs away, and eventually she's captured and sent off to this Loma planet, and becomes a slave in the mines as well. And of course, eventually they meet another human community who's been in hiding from the Grobs in the mine shafts that are the no longer used mine shafts. And so that's where the story develops. Um, and the second book, Kobo's Children, occurs on this planet Loma after after Kobo has died and Ra has become the leader of the human community. In the meantime, the Kobo and Ra discover this artifact that uh, was brought back with the initial humans. These Grobs discovered a colony of humans living in primitive conditions because their spaceship had crashed 1,000 years before, and brought a bunch of them back to the Grob planet, together with some artifacts. And one of these artifacts is a teaching device for young pioneer children. When a human holds it, it starts to glow, and a teacher appears. And so eventually Ra and Kobo have learned to speak and learned a lot about human history and human science and so forth. So the second book, these humans on Loma hiding from the Grobs are led by Ra, and one of the main characters is a wild man who's was raised on the Grob planet to be prey for Grob hunters, because human hunters was a popular sport. And so this Azu is a wild man, and he and Ra eventually get together. Anyway, and that takes the story from there. So I think they're both exciting stories
They are.
and raise a lot of interesting questions about what does it mean to be human, and how do we differ from our animals?
Right. And I think about that all the time, that like I mean, like the human body and brain hasn't changed a lot in 100,000 years, but even a few thousand years ago, we were just cavemen, right? We didn't have language, so it's not like we suddenly became smart. It's just maybe like we didn't like put the tools in place, and it's just cool how you've developed this wild world, because sometimes I get frustrated, especially with the popular culture of sci-fi, where it's just like they slap a sci-fi label on it, don't they? It's adventure and they
Exactly.
slap sci-fi. It's a police, but they slap sci-fi. And the really bizarre stuff, like I would read some, when I was in high school, like the Slaughterhouse Five or the or Harlan Ellison, or just like kind of like really wacky stuff. And it's like I feel like that tickles the mind a lot more, right? Where you get frustrated when you kind of see the same stories, the same templates, but then when there's a more fantastical world, you're like, hey, that's something new, and it's refreshing. So does this ever cross your mind that with with science fiction, it opens up new possibilities, and it's not just the same old tired story structures.
Exactly. I feel that way exactly. Um, I love Star Wars and those kind of movies, but they're basically space operas. They don't raise interesting ideas about the effect of technology or differences. Um, when I taught science fiction, that's what I loved about science fiction. Stories that raise issues about, well, what would it be like if this or that, rather than just uh, melodrama in science fiction garb.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like what like Star Trek was about, right? It was even though had the
Star Trek,
silly
yeah,
aspects, it was to get around the censors and talk about Vietnam War and humanity and the important issues. And it's like because it's
yeah,
not directly hitting you with the problem, you can like kind of come up with your own ideas, perspectives.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, very cool. And so, I mean, what has I know right before we started talking, you were talking about or we probably started recording, you mentioned the reviews. And so what has the feedback or how's that kind of interaction with your readership been like?
Well, the books have only been published fairly recently, so they haven't sold a lot. So I don't have a huge number of reviews, although they're all mostly 5 stars. Um, so I'm waiting. It's a slow process, promoting your book. Have you written any books?
I've written nonfiction, and it's tough
Yeah,
to get just a handful of readers. It's like the writing the book's the easy part. That's the one time, and then you have to constantly publicize.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, but the reviews that I've had, and I've had a couple by magazines, Kirkus Reviews and Clarion Forward, that have been all very flattering. Um, but I think it just takes um, time and effort.
Oh yeah, like many important things, right? It's if it was easy, everyone would do it, and you wouldn't get the satisfaction. And so, when you were putting these books together, did you get frustrated, or did you feel like giving up, or get writer's block, or does that not happen to you?
No, I've been writing for many years for my own pleasure whenever I have the time. When I was practicing law full time, I didn't have a lot of time, but I've been writing over the years. And since I was a child, I started writing stories. Um, so, and I'm not doing it to make a living, unlike maybe most authors. Um, so I write when the spirit moves me, um, and I don't get frustrated. I get frustrated sometimes when I don't have time enough to write. But um, no, it's been a pleasure by and large.
Nice. What a amazing hobby to have to write for fun and for pleasure. And so, are you working on anything new, or are there new like short
I'm
stories, books in the works?
Well, I have a lot of published um, screenplays. I have several published novels, um, unpublished novels, which I'm working on getting published. Right now, the only thing I'm working on is a second sequel to the Kobo. It'll be the third Kobo series, and it explore in the second at the end of the second Kobo book. Explorers from Earth is 20,000 light years away, arrive, and they've got their drones out looking at this planet, and they look down, and one of their drones sees this campfire, and there are some creatures around it, and they look closely, and these are human beings with bows and arrows. um, and so the question for these human explorers is, do we make contact with these humans and with their owners, these grobs, or would that be too much of a danger to our race? So that's the question. I won't tell you how it answers. But the third book has these humans go back to Earth, 20,000 light years away, with 100 or so of these primitive humans on the planet Loma. Um, and the re they're traveling at 99.4% of the speed of light. So if you know your Einstein time dilation, the travelers on the ship age much more slowly. And so 20,000 years of real time takes only 70 or 80 years of ship time. So they come back to Earth 40,000 years from now. And I'm trying to figure out what is the Earth going to be like in 40,000 years. Um, so I'm having fun with that.
That's quite a question. It blows my mind to think about what the Earth will be like in 400 years, never mind
Well, but
40,000.
40,000 is a snap of the fingers in geologic time. I mean, humanity's been around for more than 100,000 years. If humans are still alive, I think they won't be that much different from us today. Whether artificial intelligence has taken us over, I don't know. I doubt it. I think humans will find a way to use it to their benefit.
Yeah, and not destroy ourselves and enhance ourselves instead. And just I'm a curious person, and sometimes I'll fall down a YouTube rabbit hole or read different things, and it hurts the brain to think about these huge time spans of the universe, right? Like
Yeah.
even to get to the next star will take centuries. Even to get to the next galaxy will take millions of years, unless you come up with a faster than light. And it's it's better than filling out tax forms, right? And it's like you do the things that you do
Yeah.
for your 9 to 5 and you do your legal work. And then you say, well, hey, now I need to do the more kind of creative outside the box. And I work this part of my brain to do to make sure that my official language is right, but I need to work this other part for the more creativity. And it's like we should all consider that, right? Like the need to play and have fun and not just be serious 100% of the time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Although science fiction can explore a lot of very serious topics.
Oh yeah. Well, like what? Is
Uh,
there anything in particular that maybe like interests you that you haven't written about?
Lots of things. I have lots of story ideas. Um, but none of them pop into my mind right now. Um,
Okay, fair
but
enough.
I've read, but much of my writing has been historical. My novel is a novel about the little known Henry VII, father of Henry VIII, who
Ooh.
has, I think, a more interesting character and a more interesting life. Um, and I've written screenplays about Napoleon and Josephine, and one about the beginnings of the American Revolution from the perspective of a British corporal. Um, so history is probably most of my half of my reading is his history related.
Very cool. And it's fun to think about, right? About what would I be like in the Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War II? What kind of adventure would I be dropped in? It's fun to fantasize about. And with all your prolific creations, maybe we'll see a movie of one of these put out by you, and I can say I knew you back when. But we've jumped around lots of amazing, interesting ideas, but you're the star of the show here. So I want to make sure in our final few minutes of our discussion, do you think there might be a missing question that I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
Let me look down on my list. I made a little list.
Okay.
Um, well, one of the things that my book that one of the questions my book raises are what makes humans different from dogs. And thinking about that, there are a lot of interesting questions. For instance, do dogs fantasize? You know, I have my Kobo when he's a pet fantasizing about a little family and little toys playing soccer. Um, do dogs do that? I don't know. Do dogs have a sense of humor? Are
Hmm.
my humans, when they're pets and see something funny, they fall down on the ground and start barking, and their owners don't understand what's going on. Are they distressed? Um, and questions like that. Do dogs get do our pets, cats and dogs, get bored? I don't know. One thing about humans is my humans in my story is as pets is before they acquire language, they tend to accept everything that happens to them. Once they acquire language, they start wondering, well, why is this happening to me? Um, could I be better off doing something else? Um, so that's one of my themes in my books.
Very cool. And it almost seems like a a quest to rediscover the childlike curiosity in us, right? How children have endless questions. They ask why, and
Yeah.
then you give the answer, and then that leads to more questions. And it's like the if we're not careful, when we get into adulthood, we lose that. We lose the enthusiasm of the unknown, and that's the lesson I'm getting from speaking with you today is to tap into that childlike search for endless questions.
Yes. But if we didn't have language, I don't think we'd be asking those questions.
Right. We just yeah, we wouldn't be able to fit the pieces together, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. So it's
Or
a,
or or without culture, raised by alien creatures, we'd have no mother to tell us what's right and wrong.
right. And then you're just reinventing the wheel every generation. And why not get a leg up on life and hit the ground running and know about mathematics, language, history, all these learning is so important. And so as someone says, man, this guy, Mr. Richard A. Allen, and his so far two books in the Kobo series, there's Kobo and there's Kobo's Children. If they say, I have to read this yesterday, I want to find out more, where should someone go?
Well, first Amazon. My first book was published by Durant's Publishing, and you can get it at their bookstore. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. And now um, my first book has an audio version, and my second book just is coming out with an audio version. So I think you can get one or both of them on Kindle, audible.com, and other websites that have Audible books.
Very great. So there's no excuse, right? If you say I'm a busy
No excuse.
professional, but I can just have it, I can listen to a few minutes a day while I'm driving and get that enjoyment of some science fiction entertainment by Mr. Richard Allen, the author of Kobo and Kobo's Children. And he also has an author website at richardallenauthor.com where you can find out about his books, contact him, and especially when he has new creations coming out, you can get updated on those as well. But for now, there's this two-book Kobo series that explores humanity's resilience under alien suns. And before I let you go, Mr. Richard A. Allen, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you a little bit, put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson. So, what comes to mind as far as a quote or lesson?
Or lesson from my book.
From your
Uh,
book, from your life, from your travels, anything that comes to mind that could be useful to us.
well, I have a whole list of memorable quotes, but I can't. What comes to mind?
Well, if no quote,
Um,
then how about a lesson?
well, here's a quote that comes to mind from Will and Ariel Durant, one of their books. Speaking of an Italian noble in the 15th century, 16th century. He was not handsome. Like most famous men, he was not troubled by that distraction.
Oh,
An interesting idea.
yeah, that
Uh,
there are other factors, right? Other focuses in life.
yes, exactly.
Yes. You look at like Steve Buscemi, right? He doesn't have looks, but he's a famous actor. So it's not a limiting factor.
Yeah, Winston Churchill. There are lots of famous. Abraham Lincoln.
Oh yeah.
Most people, when they first saw him, what a homely man he is. Um,
And especially if you see him without that hat, that hat sure, adds a lot. When he doesn't have it on, it's like, ah, put it back on.
Although since television and movies, good looks become more important in politics.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway,
But anyway, on that note, whether you have good looks, bad looks, average looks, you'll still enjoy this amazing book, Kobo and Kobo's Children by Mr. Richard Allen, richardallenauthor.com, or go and search on Amazon. You'll love this book, especially if you just want something new and interesting and exciting, tickle the mind, get your brain off of the stresses of politics and good looks and jump into an amazing adventure. It's Richard Allen, who is a lawyer who lives with his wife and their yellow and chocolate Labrador retrievers in Crested, Butte, Colorado. He's a former teacher of science and speculative fiction. Kobo and Kobo's Children. Get it on Amazon. Richard A. Allen. Such a blast speaking with you today. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.